thing I'll start off by saying is obviously, something, I think something is a great idea when you instantly think, I wish I'd have thought of that. And today's guest, Gene Dolders, made me think just that. A British Giallo set in the north of England. I'm really excited to hear all about it. Thanks so much for joining us.
That's okay. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. This started off originally as a short film, actually, and then I was co-writing it with Alex, who's co-wrote the movie with me, and then we just kept writing, and we're like, oh, we passed 30 pages here. The short films generally, you want them to be about 10 minutes or less for film festivals, and then it just started getting a bit more and more. I'm like, oh well, I guess we're writing a feature now, and then we just thought, well, we've got money for a short, but we don't have money for a feature, but we'll just see if we can find it somewhere where we finish.
I love the. I don't want to make anything too spoilerific for people. I want them to discover it themselves. I'm really interested in that. I suppose my first question really is, why Giallo? What is it about Giallo that speaks to you?
I'm a massive fan of Italian cinema, specifically from, I'd say, like late 60s to mid 80s, which is kind of the height for me of Italian horror and crime. I'm a big crime movie fan, a big horror fan, more horror than crime, but yeah, like crime as well. But yeah, love Italian horror movies. Just love the atmosphere, the surrealism of a lot of it, which I think is helped by the kind of the dubbing, that they used to do, and the slightly out of sync voices, and all these little things add to the atmosphere and the look of the movies. And they're a lot more intense than most other movies, maybe by Americans or other European countries. The Italians are very passionate people, and I think that shows in the movies.
Oh yeah, for sure. Stuff. Yeah,
and obviously with the history of art, and how cinematographers obviously being as fantastic as they are because of the influences they have from their country. It's everything about a Giallo. It's not just the story; it's absolutely everything. It's down to the music. Whether it's someone like Ennio Morricone or Fabio Frizzi or Goblin doing it. To the cinematography like Sergio Salvati. I'm going to pronounce that wrong. I can't pronounce Italian names very well. Down to like the make. It's everything. It's a whole package for me with the Italian movies, and Giallos especially are just great because they have some interesting storylines. They have some really cool death scenes. They're very stylized, which is really cool. And there's not enough good things I could say about Giallis more than anything else. So I've watched them for a long time, but obviously leaned more in the past when I thought about making a movie kind of along these lines of doing a slasher, because we don't live in that period anymore where you can make a giallo. There are filmmakers who are around that are making throwbacks, and that's cool. I haven't watched it yet. Actually, our mutual friend Guy, who put me in touch with you, recommended a film to me called The Editor, which I haven't had. I've got a copy of it now, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. And I think that came out, I don't know, not that long ago, 4, 5, 6 years ago. And from the trailer, it looks very much like they're trying to make a pure giallo, from that time, and that's cool. But I didn't particularly want to do that because we don't live in that time anymore. I'm not shooting on film. Set's not going to look the same. We're not going to get the same type of music. You're just not going to create that atmosphere completely.
Yeah.
So I went leaning more towards a style of a giallo-inspired slasher film. So it's got aesthetically the aesthetics of a giallo, but more leaning towards what you would class like a slasher film. Something like Halloween or Friday the 13th or Prom, stuff like that. But to answer your original question, sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent.
No. That was really interesting because when you mentioned about being influenced but not a straight giallo film, I thought that was really interesting because you mentioned to me before about how maybe there's these days a lot of people are trying to make 80s films, but they feel out of place because we're not in the 80s. They don't. Yeah. It doesn't kind of match. And I thought that was a really interesting point. So no, I'm glad you've explained that.
Well, I think, exactly. I think, like we did talk previously, there's nothing wrong with having influences because we all have influences in life, whether you're writing or directing or making music, whatever it is. But to want to just make exactly what you watched growing up, it's nice because it's this nostalgia feeling, but you're never going to be able to do it and never going to be able to pull it off because, like we've already stated, you're not in that time period anymore. So you should use it as a base, and that's what I've done with this. So the two main aesthetically, the two main influences for the Blade Cuts Deeper are Dario Argento's The Bird with the Crystal Plumage and Sergio Martino's Torso. Torso, not so much. It's more to do with how the killer looks. Although in Torso he's wearing a balaclava, and we don't have a balaclava, but it's kind of taken some influence from there. But with Bird with the Crystal Plumage, you'll probably see at least 2 shots in there that are just like, oh, I can see where he's taking that from directly.
Well, I mean, why not? I mean, ultimately, a lot of what we would call, I suppose, what people would say are tropes about Giallo, often they're talking about things that were seen in Bird with the Crystal Plumage. That seems to be what people latch onto. Obviously, there's a literary history there. These films have lasted. The genres lasted before there were films in those yellow books that people used to buy, those little pulp novels. So the idea that, in 2024, we can see some really cool takes on that, again, with a modern feel, is really exciting. I think it's really exciting. I was going to ask you about that, the visual side of it, because a lot of it is very visual, whether it's the way the kills happen or the black leather or the motorcycle helmets or whatever the hands, the certain things that we're used to see. Is that something that maybe, as your background, and maybe if you want to talk a little bit about this, your background in camera work and director of photography, cinematography, do you think those things just are linked intrinsically with Giallo? That's kind of the first thing that stands out, is the way that they look.
I think now, yeah, I think so. Like you said, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage is, I think, the one that really catapulted Giallo movies like worldwide. They've been exported at that point, but that was the one that really like brought people's attention to it, and it was very stylized, obviously from the get-go. Dario Argento with the way he was making movies. But yeah, I think so. I think definitely that's what people think of. Not to say that we have these massive set pieces in our movie, because it is a low budget film, and we didn't have the budget that a lot of the, even though those Italian movies were considerably lower budget than the Americans, they were working with pretty decent budgets. Sometimes you'd be surprised to know. Like I was reading a book recently, and although it's not a Giallo, I was reading about I think it was The Beyond, and I think it had something like $1 million for a budget, which that's in like early 80s. That's still quite a decent amount of money to make a movie with.
That's right, because there was those certain individuals, whether it was up in the hills with a massive house that they would also, or a castle that doubled as a studio and throw money at people. These are the kind of things that sometimes we don't know where that money came from, but but yeah, it was, they were getting that funding somehow, weren't they? And I suppose that's something that we kind of pushed to one side, and we don't think that there was a lot of time and money spent on quite a few of these for the time.
Yeah, no, I'd say so, but like with the Blade Cuts Deeper, so there are some quite stylized kills in certain ways, but yeah, there's nothing as big as what you would see in an Argento film. There is definitely I'll just call it a somewhat unnecessary chase sequence in the movie that doesn't need to be there, but it's very inspired by an Argento film.
That sounds great.
Because what happened was we turned up on the last 6 days of filming. So about the last 40 minutes of the movie, which is basically the last half of the film, is set in one location. It's in a production office for a film production company. And when we turned up, when I went to scout the location where we were going to film it, the people said, "Oh, by the way, this is this place underneath where we are right now." So I went to look at it, and it was a half-finished area that had been invested in, but they couldn't get the rest of the money. So it was just essentially a construction site. And I looked at it and thought, yeah, I'm gonna have to do a chase sequence in here, because it wouldn't make any sense really, but it'll just look really good. So I just wrote a chase sequence into the movie, and then that happened. So there is that kind of event in the film, and yeah, they are quite stylized, some of the kills, and especially the camera angles. The classic, low angle knife up in the air, that kind of shot, stuff like that.
I love it. That's so cool as well, because like we were saying, obviously you're not just doing a shot for shot remake of a famous Giallo film. This is very much a British take, your own take. It's filtered through all your influences. I was reading the synopsis, and it made me really interested in watching it. I don't say that lightly, because often I can think of maybe like 2 or 3 films that I'm excited to see. There's one at the moment that I can't wait to see, is a Late Night with the Devil. I think that looks like it's going to be really, really good.
Yeah.
Almost like King of Comedy, or in The Joker, or even in Seinfeld, where there's those bits of like setup of a talk show, and it's got that kind of 70s feel to it. Why that made me think about yours was that in yours there's a kind of a TV show, lights, camera, kill, and this host John Abbott. I think that's a really good way of getting people into this. I love that kind of meta-textual feel, where you've got a show within a show, a character who is making a TV show within the thing, whether it's something like Censor, and we see little clips from the films in Censor. I think people really are attracted to things like that, because it just shows that a little bit more thought's gone into the process of the writing. It's not just stalk and slash or walk and kill. There's character development. So tell me a little bit about the story, without giving too much away.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, no, definitely. I didn't want it to just kind of be stalk and slash. Just by the way, you mentioned Sense. I just watched that for the first time a few nights ago and really enjoyed it. It was a lot more serious than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more quirky horror, but that was good. I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I really enjoyed it. It was, and it's always good to see Michael Smiley. I'm a massive Michael Smiley fan.
Yeah, he's great, isn't he? For me, I watched it around the same time as Saint Maud, and I love Saint Maud. I think it's one of the best sort of British or Welsh film horrors. There's a few that I have on that list of recent ones, and certainly like Host and Saint Maud stand out. With Censor, I think I liked, and this is going to be a bit of a hot take, like 90% of it. I wasn't that sold with the end and the saturation and the Lynchian stuff at the end, or whatever they were trying to. But I definitely appreciated the idea behind it, and a lot of the film I thought it was excellent. And again, that talks a lot about the period of horror that I guess you and I and people who are into horror are still fascinated with. Yeah. So what helped you come up with the idea of lights, camera, kill? Because it wasn't Alan Partridge, was it? It wasn't Smash Bang what a video.
No. Sorry, I'll go back to the original question you asked me. So
no, it's fine.
So the story is centered around. Well, it's not centered. Yeah, I'm trying to think of this so I don't give too much away. So there's a TV show within the movie called Lights, Camera, Kill, and it's a true crime TV show. And like every true crime TV show, they have, they'll cover a real life murder. Although the murders that are TV show within the film covers are not real murders. We've made murders up, for the TV show, so it gets a little complicated that way. So we've made up this TV show, and there's always a reenactment section. So Lights, Camera, Kill, they like to open up every episode with a reenactment of how the killer or killers, whoever the people are the covering, the killers are the covering, were caught. So the movie opens up with a story that they're doing on this particular episode and how the killer got caught, and we find out whilst watching the opening that we're actually at a film festival, and John Abbott, who is the presenter of the TV show, is a guest at the film festival, and he's giving a sneak peek preview of the final episode of season 1 at the festival, and hopes that people will spread the word and that people will tune in more to watch it. But just so happens that at this festival, one of the people who was very close to the victim in the reenactment is there watching it, and he's not too impressed with how they kind of heroically portrayed the killer almost, and how they've dealt with this person's kind of loved one's death as well. So he decides to basically just go on a murder rampage.
that is just so cool. I can think of so many people where those couple of sentences, they're like, I'm in. What part of it do you think is influenced by the Britishness of what you're doing? Because obviously we've talked about those Giallo tropes, and I love Giallo. We all love it. But what do you think makes it uniquely British? Obviously, it's filmed in Britain with British, predominantly British cast. So I'd imagine that's part of it. But what is it that, in terms of story wise or anything about it, that you think melds those things together?
I think it's probably the mentality of the people who work together on that show, and how I can't. It's difficult again to say because I give some kind of character development way, but how basically they just deal with things in a very British way. That's the easiest way for me to say it without giving too much away. Yeah, there's only one person in the movie who wasn't British. Oh no, that's wrong. Actually, there were two people in the movie who aren't British. There's Kristen, who plays the character of Olivia, but she lives in England now. She's originally from Norway, and actually, while she's in the movie, there's a part in the movie where she has a phone call with her. What is her cousin? Although that's never stated, but in the script it's her cousin. She's having a phone call with, and I thought, you know what? I'm making a Jelly movie. They basically used to throw in a bunch of people from different countries and scenes, and they would all speak their own language. We didn't do that, but I thought, you know what? I've got someone. She's from Norway. She's obviously fluent in Norwegian. She's fluent in English. I thought, you know what? We'll do this whole phone call in Norwegian, and I'll just get some foreign language in there as well, because I thought that'd be cool to have. And
that
also,
is real. Yeah, that is really.
It's
cool
also it's a phone call as well. It's necessary dialogue that people need to understand to kind of help, but at the same time, it's not. It's a bit of dialogue about what's going on, so it's a bit. So I thought
that makes perfect sense, though, because in a lot of Giallo, the British actor or the American actor is the interloper, and it's whether it's Michael Brandon or whether it's John Saxon popping up every 5 minutes, or whoever it is. These people just appear, and they almost. It's quite interesting, but you're right. A lot of the times, it's mainly phone calls with people back home or conversations within the film. I guess for time, they often just assimilate into the culture really fast. Just like they're straight into it. But actually, you need that background, don't you? That there is a person out of place here, or maybe dealing with the situation differently because it's not there. I'm trying to think of the George Lazenby one where he's trying to solve the crime, and
he's kind of whatever happened to Solange.
It might be, yeah. And
another one you mean, yeah? It's in the streets of Venice, isn't it? I'm sure it's in Venice, around the canal.
Because he feels really confused and out of time, and like that's the only one that stands out for me. Where I can think of other films, obviously, but not necessarily Giallo films. But like, say, that feeling that like Frantic, like Harrison Ford, or it's like, where's my wife? There's so many like that, and I think that's the scary part of it is being out of place. So this is almost switched. You've got a predominantly British character cast with one or two interlopers from different cultures as well.
That's right. The other person is Quentin, who plays the character of Noah, and he's a security guard at the production company. It's his first night working at the production company, and Quentin's from Texas. So and as John Abbott is not a very nice person. I was going to say another word which is used about him in the movie.
Well, you can do. Feel free. I probably use similar all the time, so I won't censor you.
People don't like him. So a moment John Abbott meets him, he's just giving him shit already because he's American. That's the type of person John Abbott is. So no one likes him. No one likes him, but they all work with him because he gives them work, and
he's the Noel Edmonds of the
well, he allows them to do the work that they all want to do, which is work in TV, or technically it's a streaming show that they have, but he treats it as if it's an old school TV show, because I think he's still living a little bit in the past. But it's in regards to being very British, it's not. I wouldn't say that. It's quite open. Maybe the attitudes of the way some people deal with things are quite British, but apart from that, it's quite an open story. I think a lot of people can relate to it because it's about how people are treated at work as well, which everyone can relate to in some way. So
100%,
obviously, So I mean, there's little bits in the character of Abbott that we've put in, that we've had dealings with previous bosses, and we think, well, yeah, that would suit going in there, so
yeah,
work
that's it. That's how we get these things out as well. I think when people say write what you know, it's a cliche, but actually, in terms of how you do that, is very nuanced, and it feels genuine and real and lived if you do write about experiences that you have, because it's really hard to kind of get that across unless you've been through it. Sometimes, the phrase when people say they don't know they're born. I always think, well, when I'm working with people and someone goes, "Oh, well, they don't know what it was like 10 years ago. It was like this, this, and this." They go, "Well," I go, "Yeah, they literally don't know. It's out of their realm of understanding and experience. Therefore, it doesn't matter what you say, they're not going to get that." Whereas in a film, you can see it. So it's genuine. Your characters are showing those things. So I love that there's like some real horrible bosses in there, some real pains in the backside you've had to deal with, and yeah, collectively that's a good way of dealing with it. So in terms of your coming towards this film and directing this film, you've obviously been involved in a lot of other projects particularly over the last few years, in terms of cinematography or production, or even working on different things. Just tell me a little bit about your background and how you got to the point of making the blade cuts deeper, because I imagine it was like a step-by-step process.
Yeah, no, well, I started out as a camera operator for a production company that dealt mainly in market research, so really sexy stuff, that was for car. I mean, I enjoyed the job because it was for car manufacturers, and we were the setup basically would be they would get members of the public in, bring them in, look at a car that's going to be out, say, 5 to 10 years, get them to walk around and model of the car, sit them down in a room, talk about it, see what they like and didn't like about it, just normal market research stuff, and we filmed it. But with that, we got to travel all over the world doing that, so that was a pretty cool part of the job.
That sounds a bit like sorry to interrupt, but I was just thinking as you were saying that, it's not very sexy and all this kind. I was just thinking, think about George Romero making adverts and doing public information and things like that. So maybe you're the UK George Romero,
Well, my glasses are getting bigger and bigger all the time, so maybe
same.
But yeah, I started out doing corporate stuff like that, and then moved into doing, like George Romero industrials and things like that, and doing some commercial work. And then took a bit of a break and went out the country for a little bit to live out the country, and did some work whilst I was away. Then came back in 2016 and got back into doing filming again, but was doing more corporate stuff. And then 2018, I thought, my dream's always been to make a movie. I've been writing movies since I was a teenager, scripts, because I just like writing anyway. And I've always wanted to make a movie, but I never really had the maturity, I think, when I was a little bit younger to make it, and mostly the maturity to deal with people in making the movie, because you're only making the movie, filming it for Blade Cuts Deeper was a 14-day shoot. It's a very short shoot for a movie, but when you haven't got a lot of money, you've got to squeeze out as much as you can in a short amount of days. But the movies, we started writing the movie in September 2021, and it's almost finished now. It should be delivered around May this year to me. It's in post-production sound right now, and the scores just in the final bit of working on it. So it's been a while. Sorry, my point is that I don't think that even you're on 14 days on set, you need the maturity, especially as a director, to deal with all the people, because you're constantly being battered with questions by all the different departments you're working with. And not that we had massive amounts of departments, because obviously, again, it's a small budget, but you got camera, you got sound, you got makeup. You might even have, because I'm a producer, but I brought in a line producer when we were on set. So even beforehand, things like applications and all this information, and having the maturity to deal with people and talk to people on set and beforehand in pre-production. If I'm honest, I definitely didn't have that when I was in my 20s, and then it took in my 30s living away to kind of grow up a little bit and then come back and then realize, okay, I can do this now. So I always had ideas, but being able to bring people together and do it. And also, I hadn't really had that much experience on film sets. You know, it would be like corporate or commercial projects. So I
Is there a
came
major
back and
difference between them, or do you
oh
feel
yeah.
like you were learning your trade just in a different way,
Oh well, yeah.
or
There's parts
both?
of it, sure. I mean, sure, there's parts of it because even with commercials and corporate stuff, you can do a lot of great work visually and learn a lot of stuff. You know, whilst you're working in the camera department, and I learned a lot of stuff working with the like in the sound department, and because you have all a lot of similar departments, so you learn a lot of the lingo, which is helpful when you get on set to make a movie because you can make things move quicker. You know, while you're making it, which is good, and also understand a little bit of their process as well, which is good because you can communicate easier. You know, not I would never call myself a master of any particular department. Maybe obviously more camera department, but you know, I know little bits from here and there, which is very helpful, especially if you're directing a movie, just to communicate and get things across easier. So you don't have to spend too long having a conversation about what you want. But yeah, there's similarities, but there's also big differences as well. But yeah, so that's it. And then 2018, I started a company called Barber Green Digital, and then we were doing work with charities and social enterprises. And then I had some money left over that was meant to be a salary for me for a job I'd done for some of these charities and social enterprises. And I thought, well, you know what? I've got this short film. Always wanted to do a narrative. I'll make a short film. So I did that. And that short film is actually where I started the relationship with the DP I use on my films, because I don't really want to be the DP on my own movies. It's enough directing on set to have to worry too much about all the other things as well. And then I met so his name's Paul Avis, and then I met my sound guy, his name's John Meller, who's worked on everything with me since I did my very first short film. And then pretty much a lot of the other people who worked on the feature I've met on my short film, bar a few others that we had to bring in because we had a little bit more of a budget than we did on the short film for the feature, so we could have a couple of extra people that I wouldn't normally have. So yeah, I started making shorts about 2018. Made two shorts. One played in a couple of festivals. The other one played in one festival. Wasn't really using them to get me work. The shorts were really okay. I know how to do industrial. I know how to do commercial stuff, corporate stuff. The short films were kind of my film school for how to make narrative pieces. So that's what they were really good for. And then, like I said, I started writing The Blade Cuts Deeper, which I think it had another title. It might have just been called Lights, Camera, Kill, the short film. I can't remember, to be honest. I'd have to look at the script. It's somewhere. But it wasn't called The Blade Cuts Deeper. And we started writing that. I started writing that with my friend Alex. And then it just spiraled into more and more pages. And I thought, well, I could condense this into a short. But you know what? I've made two short films. I feel like these are what my first two short films taught me. The first short film taught me how to budget and how to schedule, which is really important. The second short film I did was the first short film was crime. Second short film was horror, and that taught me how to work well with a makeup effects department, because I always wanted to use practical makeup effects if I was going to do a horror movie. So that taught me how to do that. So then I came, well, I've got the feature now. I know how to budget. I know how to schedule things. I'm good at finding locations. I've got a good script. I know how to talk to all the different departments now. I know what I want visually, because I mean, it may be enough that you just love movies and you could go, because I remember Quentin Tarantino said once something along the lines of if you really really love movies that much, you can't help but make a good movie. And I think that's true if your first movie has like $1 million or $2 million budget and you've got professionals working in all the other departments. But when you're working with a low budget like us, and okay, you may love movies, you still need to have a level of skill yourself or background in it, just so that you can you're not relying purely on all the other people that have a background in it, but haven't been doing it for that long, so you can help things move along a
particularly
little bit quicker.
if it's your vision, in any realm, you want to be skilled enough to be able to kind of literally direct those things, so that what comes out on screen is what you had in your mind originally. And sometimes that takes going away and learning a new skill, or learning or improving a certain skill. I really enjoyed I know you sent me the trailer, and I really enjoyed it, the way it was shot and the way it was put together. And obviously I've read the synopsis as well. it feels very considered and thought out.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, I don't think that takes away from any creativity. You know, like you were saying, if people are like, oh, just go and make a film, go make a film. Loads of people do that, but do we consume those films and come back to them? We might do, in a kind of watching a bad movie kind of way and having lots of fun with it, which I love to do. And I don't really mean bad, because it's just a different type of movie, I guess. But when you're trying to make something with love, it's different, isn't it? And I think that,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
what part of that came from the short? So like, I was having a look through, and another great title, by the way, Death is the Keeper of Secrets. That feels very
So that is
great.
actually a line from Sergio Martino's Torso. When the killer's walking up the
Right.
stairs at the end, he's whispering to himself, "Death, keep secrets." Death.
Right.
And I thought that's a cool fucking line. I want to title a movie.
Yeah, man. I love it. I love it. I think as you go, I think every film you make, you should add another 2 words onto the title, so that we literally get your window is the key to the soul of the death of the lung, and then we're like, people look at it and go, that's definitely a Giallo.
Well, the thing is, right? So my 2 shorts, one's called Death is the Keeper of Secrets, and the other one called Death is Not a Whisper. And I thought, well, I should make it a trilogy. And the next thing I wanted to call Death Strikes at Midnight, which was a title I was considering for this film, but I thought, no, that's for my short. If I do another short, this is.
Oh, I think the blade cuts deeper, because the blade itself as an instrument is instantly tied in with Giallo and tied in with Italian film. I think that, you know, just from whether it's slicing of an eyeball or, you know, all those things that make you go, ugh. The idea of a blade and the clinical side of a blade coming near human anatomy is so scary, isn't it? It's just one of those things where your body reacts to it more than your mind. It's a kind of just a instant reaction. Do you did you consider that? So you talked about practical effects. Is practical effects something that excites you about filmmaking?
Oh yeah, because when I was younger, I used to watch when you could find documentaries or find behind the scenes footage. I was always influenced, always a big fan of Tom Savini. I've got his book. It's actually right just there on the shelf of there, Grand Illusions. And yeah, I'm a big fan of practical effects. I kind of wanted to do practical, be a makeup artist when I was younger, but I'm terrible at drawing and I can't sculpt for shit.
Same.
And so it wasn't really an option. And then I leaned more towards cinematography, because I liked photography when I was younger, and I like the idea of being a cinematographer. So I leaned more towards that and just started writing as well.
The exciting side of you know, whether it is cutting something with someone with a blade, or the visual, I suppose is a visual effect, but the practical side of it, getting your hands dirty and trying these things and working with different people, I guess that helps in a low budget to a certain degree. You have certain limits that you can work, and you can't just be like, oh, well, I'll buy this thing that costs thousands and thousands of pounds and to make it work. So talk to me a little bit about that, the sort of the practical side of things, you know, how you got the practical effects going, essentially, how you got them working, without giving away any specifics, I suppose.
Sure. Well, I mean, I've got nothing against visual effects. In fact, I've got a guy who introduced me to you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
so he's a visual effects artist. He's working on my movie now, because there are stuff that he's doing on the movie, but predominantly a lot of the kills are all practical. So one of the death scenes again, there's a lot of POV stuff in this because it's Giallo influenced. So Argento apparently was famous for doing, whenever you'd see like a hand come into shot from the killer's point of view, it might be his gloved hand. Well, there are a couple of shots in this movie that are my gloved hand. There's a bit in the movie where the character of Olivia dies. It's pretty obvious from the behind the scenes footage that she's gonna die. you see that behind the scenes. So she actually gets killed very graphic, her death, and I was the one who gets to do it because it was a point of view. So I thought, I'm going to do this. So this is, I've got it up here. It looked at me as I sleep, which is, I guess, a bit creepy. But this is a cast of so the actress's name, her name is Kristen. She played the character of Olivia. And this is her face after she's killed in the movie. So let's see if I can get this for you.
Oh wow! Oh, that's so cool.
So obviously, she had there was a wig that went on this. But,
no, yeah. I love that. That's great.
So yeah, so it was. I think I stabbed it about 30 or 40 times with the knife. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's something that you need. Yeah, you definitely need to be. That doesn't go in the bin afterwards. That's a piece of of your history.
It's actually the second severed head I have up on that cabinet, because my first short film, I had another actor's head cast for the story, and his head had been chopped off with a machete, and had a couple of machete slices in his head, like you see chunks. So that's up there. That's actually in a box, because my son has friends over sometimes, and one of his friends saw it and got scared. So I had to away in the box.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, yeah, explaining that one is quite an interesting conversation, I guess.
Yeah. No, I love practical effects. I want practical effects in the movie. It's just fun on set, working with them. And like I said, working on that second short taught me how to work with the practical effects department, and not just how to communicate with them, but also, like, going back to scheduling again, knowing how long you need to give your makeup guys and gals to do what they need to do. Because I've been on sets for some low budget horror, and they get there and like, oh, you got 2 hours, and they're like, well, we need at least 4 hours to put all these appliances on, and so I found all that out. So we had the last 2 days. Was it like, well, one night was different because one of the actors had to leave, but last 2 days of the shoot for 3 of the death scenes were just purely makeup effects. We shot all the bits around the scene, and then we just spent the last 2 days actually doing the makeup effects. So we had lots of time for applying them and like making sure the effects were working and things like that. So it's just lots of fun.
That's it. And I guess the thing is, I mean, I was recently watching Event Horizon, and I think that's an incredible film. And even though there's some obviously there's some CGI and things like, but there's also some practical, and I guess it's that melding and carefully. You talk about Guy and the things Guy's done, and he's done so many great, pieces of work in visual effects. You'd be kind of naive to think that a successful film doesn't have all of the tools in your toolkit in it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what makes, I think, why I'm excited about your film. And the more I talk to you as well, is that kind of idea of, you've obviously done the background in learning your craft and your trade so that these things can work, rather than, like you say, turning up on the day and going, I don't think this can work. We gave ourselves an hour to do it. It would take 4 or 5 hours. Let's just leave it out.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, that's it. And the other big thing I learned about being a director is, especially at this level, it may be different at the higher budget levels. I mean, it probably won't be in certain respects, but is compromise. Like the amount of compromises you have to make, because you've planned all these things and you've got everything you need, but then you get there and something happens, and because money simply buys you more time on set, and we don't have an abundance of money, you're like, well, we've got to compromise now, and you've got to be able to just switch something in your head and make a decision. And I mean, you should have some kind of plan Bs and plan Cs anyway, just in case for what you think may happen. But sometimes things pop up that you just don't realize, so you just got to come up with stuff on the spot. But I went into this feature film, and this doesn't seem like I had high hopes, but I went into this feature film thinking, we got 14 days on this budget. I'll be happy if I get 50% of what I want. And then I watched the first cut of the film, and I was like, oh shit, I got about at least 80%. And then as the cuts have gone on, I'm like, oh, I've got more. This is great. So we had to do one pickup day on the movie, because I watched the first cut back and thought, oh, there's a death implied in that bit, but you know what? I don't want to see the death, but I want to see the aftermath of the death. So we went back to the location and just shot an insert essentially. But then it took, and we were sitting there, and the actor needed to have all these puncture marks put over her face, which took ages, and which is fine, but that's good because you need time again to do it, and we got a really nice shot of her just lying dead, with it showing she gets stabbed to death in the face. I've got a lot of stabbings in the face in this movie. I don't know why. This one was with a screwdriver though, not with a knife.
So it's variety. There's variety.
There's a variety.
Yeah. Obviously, if I put a link to the website, that's the best place to find out information about when the release and when we can get to see it and how we can get to see it.
Well, there is a Facebook page as well. To be honest, it hasn't been updated in a while because I just started concentrating on the edit of the movie, and then been working on all the post production with all the different departments, getting the film finished. So I should update the Facebook website because I was the one running that. But yeah, there is a Facebook page as well, which I think would probably be a better place to go. Although the website states at the moment it's in post production, which it is, and we'll update the status of it once it's finished. And I've just signed off yesterday on a song that's going to get to be used in the movie, so I'll probably end up putting that on the page on the website as well. And the trailer still needs grading, so once it's graded, that'll go up on the website. And any big announcements will probably be on the main page of the website, such as like release dates or festival dates, because we're looking to go to festivals first before doing anything else.
I'm looking forward to that. To getting to hear about how it how it gets received, and where you go with the film, and I just can't wait to see it myself. And I know that looking on your IMDb, there's a mention of an in production film as well, body horror.
Oh yeah, so that's a horror. It's a feature film. It's an anthology movie that I'm working on with a company from, I think they're based in Cardiff. I'm sure they're based in Cardiff. Called Hellbound Media. Their background is in comic books, but they're branching out into movies. So they contacted me, and I'm doing the cinematography for every segment of the anthology, the wraparound section, and all the sections. And I'm meant to be directing one of the shorts, but we'll see how that goes. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but I'm doing the cinematography for the whole thing anyway. So we've shot some. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about making an anthology movie as well. You don't have to shoot it all in like 30 days. They're all separate stories. So we've shot.
It's like how Amicus had it down to an absolute science, didn't they? And basically out of a shed. So you're like, it's great, and they're so. I think actually they play better now than they ever did, because we have. I'm not going to say we all have shorter attention spans, but we quite like an episodic approach to things. So it works really well. I mean, I don't know. We talk about trends, and I get like little email updates of things from YouTube, and sometimes they were like, oh, well, everyone's watching shorts and you need to be doing shorts and people's attention span. But then actually, when you look at it, and I'm no expert because I'm very old and very out of touch, but one of the things I was reading about TikTok is that they're moving towards longer form content because people are ready for it. So it's kind of cyclical. And I think what it comes down to is the quality and interest of it. So I'm excited to hear more about the anthology side of body horror, but the Blade Cuts Deeper is your baby, isn't it? That's the one that we all want everybody to go out and see and find more information about.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's as much horror as possible, really, because we should be supporting all the British horror that we can, because there's a lot of stuff going on in England in the low budget side. It's a shame it just doesn't have more money pumped into it, with the funding. There's funding available from private people or people doing things like like crowdfunding, stuff like that. But we don't really have the BFI or places like that going out of their way to fund horror. I think they do completion funding maybe, but I don't think they. I don't think you can go to them and say, look, hey, I want to stab someone in the face 30 times. Can you give me some money? So
they rebadge it when they think it's going to do well. Basically.
I'd love people to go and keep track of the Blade Cuts Deeper, and keep out of look out for when it comes out. But there's like body horror movie, which I think that's just a title they're going with at the moment. That's not the final title of the movie. And then there's another one I'm blanking on right now. There's another film we were meant to start shooting in May, but I think it's been pushed back to September now. I don't think I can say anything about it, but it's
right.
It's set in Liverpool, which is local to me. So that I'm going to be the cinematographer on that one. But like directing wise, I've got a couple of scripts I'm working on right now, but it's more just it's trying to find the funding more than anything, because I found funding for this, and I put some of my own money up for it, because it just when nobody knows who you are, you have to do that. No one, people, just because you have a great idea, you hear all these amazing stories from Hollywood, like, oh, he had this amazing script and you got offered it, and you're like, it doesn't work that way. You could have a really good idea and amazing script, but you've never made a movie before. People are very reluctant to give you money, so you're just going to have to put your money where your mouth is and do it yourself, really.
Yeah. Well, that I found it really interesting. My first interview that I did was with Jed Shepherd, and he gave me a real understanding.
I listened to that one.
Oh, good. Oh, I hope you liked it. I thought it was fascinating chap, and he gave me a real understanding of the funding side. And to be honest, he's the kind of person that I would want in charge of galvanizing the British film industry. And
exactly.
And then on top of that, I've met people. Jason Brown, who's just finished Creek Encounters in Nottingham, and I remember him. What really stood out for me, telling me about being on a similar course to Shane Meadows, but now those courses aren't available for young filmmakers, and they can't follow those paths. And I was really frustrating. So like that was basically the intention behind this channel, like I said to you before. And obviously speaking to Guy Pearson, who works in for so many films he's worked with and kind of supported other people as well, and such a great guy and a supporter of this channel. So I think when we're talking about all these creative, wonderful people in Britain, you're dead straight when you say, if we can support and discuss and share and help each other out, then that's the way forward, isn't it? It's that kind of idea of not just keeping it to yourself and protecting your own little bubble, but actually saying, "Oh, have you checked out this film? Have you checked out this creator?" So have you found that predominantly your experiences have been positive with other filmmakers and other creators?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I like recently I met a guy named Charlie Steeds. I don't know if you know his films. He makes on average, it seems, about 2 movies a year, working in the micro budget level. And I've seen quite a few of his movies. They did a screening of one of his films kind of locally to me, and he was there. So I just went there and met him and introduced myself and said, I've just made a movie. I was talking to him. And he's a really nice person. He gave me a lot of advice about, sales agents and distributors, because I've never had to deal with that before. So there are a lot of nice people out there. You go talk to them and you just tell them what you're doing, and they want to help. And of course, there are other people that you talk to, and there's a little bit of competition, or they think that maybe you're impeding on their territory or something like that. But there's always going to be people like that, no matter what.
There is in every profession. Yeah, that's just the way it is. And I guess as well, like film festivals and things like that, that there's sometimes you go to certain ones and the atmosphere is so supportive, and you're just meeting people and having a drink and getting to know them. I really enjoyed the best ones I went to were like, obviously I didn't have a film to sell, so it was even better. But was when they used to do the Starburst film festivals in Manchester, because there was such a range of established and new creators. But it was just very, very, everybody was on the same level, just chatting about film and taking, details and sharing ideas. I guess as well, the online version of that is things like Film Freeway and sharing and sending things out and finding all the free ones. Is there any advice you would give to people who are wanting to do, make their own horror film? Is there something that you would say is the really important that you would share with them?
You don't need a Red or an Arri camera to make a movie. I'll get that across right now. I'll tell you. It's really bizarre, because as a cinematographer, like, I've talked to people and they're like, "Oh, well, you should come and do the movie with us." And then I tell them, "Well, I don't, traditionally anyway, people DPs never really had their own cameras traditionally, but then that was with 35mm film, so you can understand cameras are a bit more affordable nowadays. But once people find out that I'm not shooting with a Red or an Arri, they're like, "Oh, well, it's not going to be top quality. It's not Netflix approved." I'm like, "Well, first of all, is your film being financed by Netflix? No, so they don't give a shit. If your film's good and it plays festivals and people care, they'll take your movie anyway. That Netflix approved list, I'm pretty sure, is only for if they're financing your film. That's what that list is for."
Right. Yeah,
And
because there's
people
all
all,
kinds of things pop up on Netflix and Tubi
yeah,
and Prime of all various qualities.
yeah. So you don't need the greatest equipment to make a movie. What you need is obviously some passion, some knowledge of cinema. Obviously helps, and do what you go in the direction that you want to make. I see a lot of people starting off, especially in film school, and they start with some kind of serious drama, or it's always something about mental health. And like, well, those are serious subjects, and there's nothing wrong with making people aware about that. But is it really what you want to be doing? There's nothing wrong with turning around and saying, "You know what? I just want to kill someone in a movie, and it's going to be fun, and there's a
Like
story to go along with it."
Fun,
So why not?
fun. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a sort of like people would say like a poverty porn kind of film, or a film that you think finance people will enjoy, or if you're really not into costume dramas, then don't make a costume drama. Like I can't imagine anything worse than sitting down and watching Pride and Prejudice or whatever. It just doesn't do it for me. I know there are people who love that, but if I was to make a film, I would want it to be fun, like Basket Case, or something, like
Yeah,
something
no,
that
completely.
that is just gets me excited and makes me laugh. But then again, I've always been. I don't know. Maybe people are turning around to this. Maybe you'll have an opinion on this. But like years and years ago, I used to always be like, "Oh, I love Halloween 3. It's silly. It's over the top. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. But I love the music, the characters, it's quotable. It's my favorite of the thing." And people just be like, "What are you talking about? It's rubbish."
No,
Now
Halloween.
people are more excited, aren't they, about films like that? More excited about the
Yeah,
fun side of film.
yeah. I mean, apparently, I think from what I've read, John Carpenter wanted to make every Halloween movie different, so they'd be like anthology movies. But then obviously the first one was very popular, so they had to stick with Michael Myers. But no, Halloween 3 is ace. That's a great film. It's the robot,
Yeah.
the robot dude's a good.
I'm hoping people come around to these things, more now, and kind of we need films that are genuinely entertaining. I don't want to see. This is why I kind of switched off to a lot of modern films, and so very, very dark, grey, sort of just nothing really happening, just wandering around a house. Like if I want to see Belial, I want to see blades cutting deeper. I want to see people stabbing people in their heads with screwdrivers. These things are fun and exciting, and it's really cool that you're following that. It sounds like to even be saying you've made 80% of the film you wanted to make makes me think that you're a perfectionist, and I can't wait to see what happened.
Well, I mean, like I grew up watching like my favorite movie, the best movie I've ever seen is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I just think it's the greatest film I've ever seen. It's a fantastic movie. Low budget by standards, but still bigger budget than what I had to work with. And then also, movies like Brain Dead, something like that, or
Yeah.
Bad Taste. It's just kind of stupidly fun. Evil Dead, gory. Or maybe Evil Dead is gory, but not as gory as what people consider gory nowadays. But at the time, gory, over the top, ridiculous, but a lot of fun and very creative, very inventive with its camera movements and all.
That's it. It's the inventive. Inventive is, I think, is the key word, isn't it? When to see something you've not seen before is often not always dependent on budget, is it? It's dependent on working to those limitations and having that creative spark, I guess, and just being passionate about what you do.
Oh, completely. I mean, I'm a massive fan of found footage movies, and a lot of them aren't great, but that's fine because you can pick any genre or subgenre of movies, and maybe a lot of them aren't great, but you get a few really good ones. But I'll always watch found footage movies because I just like the idea of them. I think it's a great idea, found footage movies.
Yeah.
Like I watched Dashcam. quite recently, and I really like that. But it was strange because I went online and I'm reading not reviews, but just kind of seeing general things that people saying about it, and they're talking about the main character in Dashcam. And saying that was the worst thing for them, was like quite annoying. But I thought her character was perfect. I thought that type of character is exactly what that movie needed. And I really liked their character a lot. And I thought I was talking to Guy because he did the visual effects for it, and I'd be like, and I'm trying to, he's telling me what was practical and what was real. And I was like, I couldn't even tell. You know, his work is so good.
It was really, really good in that sense. Yeah, particularly with that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think when I talked to Jed, the intention was to make something less accessible than Host, like a deliberate attempt to do something like a 360-degree or 180. Oh, my maths is terrible, but a big change to the first one in the sense of, or not the first one, but to Host and say we're going to throw a lot of interesting, wild stuff at you here. Can you take it? Can you take this personality of this character? Can you take this? What some of the things you're going to see? Can you, I think that was a really brave piece of filmmaking, and I kind of only got it after listening to people talk about it. And again, the reviews didn't reflect what I saw. And actually, I think like we need challenging characters in films because it's not boring.
It was just great. I mean, no, her character honestly was perfect for her because it drove the decisions where the movie went perfectly.
Yeah.
And everything happened because she made those decisions because of who she was, and that's why it worked. Another type of character making those same decisions or moving the movie in the direction that obviously they wanted it to go in, it wouldn't have worked. So I really like Dashcam a lot. That's one, again, it's found. I mean, it's classed as a found footage movie, I guess, right? Although it's not essentially, because it's more like live streaming, isn't it? That she's live streaming.
Yeah. And again, it's so unique, isn't it?
Yeah, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's you come across a movie. I'm a bit late. It came out a couple of years ago. I came across it only recently. Watched it, and I loved it. I really liked it a lot. So I haven't seen Host yet. So based on Dashcam, I'm going to go and watch Host now.
Host is the film that really got me into sort of watching modern British horror films again, because I've always been like a Hammer, an Amicus, and further back, the kind of person, and maybe some video nasties from the 80s. But really, Host was the one for me that's like it's like a 10 out of 10 film for me. I just think it's a wonderful film. So, and it was just so nice, again, like to be able to talk to the writer of it and kind of get all that information, because just as a film geek, it's fun to hear these things. Like just talking to you today, it makes me much more excited. I was already really wanted to watch it just from literally just all you had to say to me was British Giallo, and I was like, I'm in. But everything that you've told me today, I'm really interested in seeing it now, and hopefully, people will watch this and go, I'm in as well. I'm going to post all the links in the description, and hopefully we can have a chat again in the future about how everything went with the release of the film and the festivals. Or even we just talk about your choices of films that you love to watch, or you educate me on some Giallos that I've not seen. So that would be amazing. Or even on the scores or the directors of photography whose names I don't know. So these are all going to be, hopefully if you come back on again, that would be amazing, Gene.
No, I'd love to come back on again, and thanks. I really appreciate coming on and talking about movies. And can I recommend one more movie? Can I recommend one more movie? Because I'm kind of like you.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah.
I wasn't. I'll watch movies. I like watching movies, but yeah, I tend to watch more older movies nowadays. But another movie that got me back into watching, not got back into watching modern horror movies again, but I saw it and thought, there are still good movies being made. Was I think it's from 2018 or 2019. It's called The Dark and the Wicked, and it's just a supernatural movie set on a farm, but it's really good. I mean, it's really good. And and sometimes when you see an actor, you're like, I'm going to watch that just based on that. Xander Berkeley's in it. I thought I'll watch that because Xander Berkeley's in it. It sounds interesting. So and it was that's a really good film.
Oh wow, I'll have to check that out. That is available on Prime. So yeah, I'll have to check that one out. I love to do. I'm literally just always when I'm talking to people, they say a film. I'm like, right, I'm putting that on my list. It's the best. That's one of the best things about doing this channel as well, is that people who I talk to or have other channels, they're just like, have you seen this? And I'm like, nope. And I want to now. So yeah. So no, thank you, Gene, and I know that we'll talk again and keep in touch with what you're doing. Just all the best of luck with it, because it's just, for me, it's just right up my street, and I know I can think of so many people who were really excited about seeing the Blade Cuts Deeper as well. So thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.